This week, support for Zapped to the Past podcast is brought to you by Manscaped, who is the best in men's below-the-waist grooming. Their products are precision-engineered tools for your family jewels. Manscaped's performance package, the ultimate men's hygiene bundle. So join over 4 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped with their most prized possessions with this exclusive offer for you. 20% off and free worldwide shipping with the code ZAPPED20. That's ZAPPED20, ZAPPED 20 at manscaped.com. If my math is correct, that's about 8 million balls that are already being shaved by Manscaped products. Hello and welcome to another special episode of Zapped to the Past. Normally each week we are looking at a load of C64 games and music, TV and all that kind of thing, but not this week. We're in our mid-season break, as you probably noticed. We just finished off 1987. We are preparing to get into 1988. But in the meantime, yeah, I know. It's like, but in the meantime, I feel we're at the top of the bell curve at the moment for games. It's like...
Yeah, I think it could be a slow decline now.
I think it's all going to slowly head downwards. But in the meantime, for this one, and as promised, as part of our Patreon, we have our Ask the Podcast. And so over the past few months, our patrons have been probing us with questions. We've been chatting with them, but now we must record that. And you can listen to that for your audio pleasure. And that's what this is. So it's another... We've got questions that they've asked us. We're going to answer them. And that's what this is. So it's just a little interstitial break while we're sort of on hiatus. Next week, we are getting back to 1988. So we've got the first of the January episodes. I think I said we'll be coming back, starting that into it. But, you know, we're doing other stuff. We take a week off. We were very tired after 1987. I was very tired. Very tired. It felt like I'd actually lived through 1987 again. If I'm honest. Knackered. Yeah, so we needed a bit of a break. And this is a nice palate cleanser. So it's just a few questions. So that's what we're going to do. So, you know, if you want to get in on this action, obviously, and ask us questions that you may have burning a hole in your soul, you can do that by joining up to our Patreon, because that's where these questions come from. And you can find our Patreon at just patreon.com/Zapped to the Past. And if you join the C64 level, you can probe us with questions and we will endeavour to answer them, along with all the other stuff that goes along with that, which is early access to the episodes. You get these early. Any bonus things we've done, and we've just bonused, haven't we? We've just bonused. We've absolutely just bonused.
Got right bonus.
A Brucey bonus.
It's better than a Brucey boner.
A book bonus. And so we've just done that. So you get all those kind of things. Access to our Discord where there's loads of crazy chat going on. You can put stuff in for our yearly awards and all things like that. So that would be cool if you want to do that. Anyway, enough of that. Should we get into the questions? I think we should. I think we must. Yeah, David Hearn asked us, our first one, what was the catalyst for you to switch from the Commodore 64 to another platform? For him, it was Damocles, which had only come into the Amiga and ST, and he saw something called Mortville Manor and was impressed. So he moved on to the Amiga and then later got a SNES. What about you? What was the kick? Was there any?
Yes, actually, I was at this point at the peak of trading. We'd been creating demos on the C64.
Are we talking about the end of 1987 here?
No, for me it was at the end of 1989, 1990. Right, so I still had a C64 up to this point. We'd been making some demos, me and my friend Joe, and obviously we'd kind of drafted everyone in to do a bit of something at some point. You'd come in and written some scroll text. We'd had friend of the podcast, Gary, had even been in. We were all part of a kind of a demo group. We'd produced some what we thought were quite cool demos. I look at the new demos now and think, goodness me, you know. But either so, we were doing some stuff, and what we weren't doing really was playing a lot of games at the time, heavily into demos. But one of the members of the demo group we were in, S Express, he got an Amiga and traded his 64 and got an Amiga. And so I started to be exposed to more Amiga demos and more Amiga games, because obviously he was still part of the scene. and so was getting a lot of access to that. And it was those Amiga demos, because I was really into the demo scene for the C64, still am, and the Amiga demos that started to appear really started to, because I loved the music on the Amiga. It was really what sold the Amiga to me. It was the demos and the music that I was hearing. And then I saw somebody, a friend of mine had got a tool that enabled him to create. It was like a sound tracker type tool, and he'd got a load of software, and he'd got this tool, and I was sort of really impressed with how easy it was to make music on the Amiga with the tracker software. And that's kind of what made me think, actually, I need to get an Amiga because I want to make the music on it. I want to do that stuff. I wasn't so bothered about doing demos or anything like that on it, or even playing games. For me, I wanted to use it as a music creation tool, and I set about doing that. And so I sold lock, stock and barrel my Commodore 64 with all of my discs and code routines of the whole bally lot, and got an Amiga 500, which was the pack that came with Shadow of the Beast 2, and I can't remember, a couple of other games, I think. I can't remember now. And then, of course, went to see my friend Mark and went to see my friend Steve at the time, who both had Amigas, and they just gifted me with a whole metric ton of demos and games and stuff. And then the rest is kind of history. I never really looked back. I had an Amiga for a long time after that. And then from Amiga, for me, it was kind of PC after that. But that was me. But you, because you had a 64, and then what happened?
Yeah, I had a C64. And for me, it wasn't so much moving to switch to another platform, really. I went through a period I've already said it, sort of thing, 87, 88, 89, where I just kind of fell off computers for a bit. I think I turned 16, 17, 18, I was turning 16, 17 at this point. I was doing other stuff. I think I'd have bought a guitar at this point, maybe.
Girlfriends and things.
Guitar, girlfriends, started to go out. There was just a whole different life. And so it was like, I was doing other things. I had a job with part-time money. We were, I think we started going out in 1990, obviously, to pubs and clubs and things like that. And so it all changed. So my Commodore 64 was just packed away, really. I didn't really use it that much. And so I just I actually had a period where I completely fell off gaming through that period, around about 8 and 9. The only gaming I was really doing was around at your house. We would play like High K Plus on your Amiga. We'd play things like
Darkmere.
Shadow of the Beast. Darkmere, that weird sort of isometric RPG one. Yeah. Things like Shadow of the Beast, Lotus Esprit. I remember, obviously, you playing Secret Monkey Island and things like that. So there was stuff like that I was aware of and would sort of look at. But I think we were more into films, and we started making short films and stuff like that. And we were doing our fanzine. All that period of time, which was, another use for your Amiga. I was making some tunes on your Amiga as well. I did a few tunes on that. And so I didn't actually get an Amiga until I went to university. Oh, it was just before I went away. I think it was I think Tony got one. I moved away with him.
He was using one at college, wasn't you? Because it had the titles with that Scala software.
Yeah, so we were using stuff, because that was still based on yours. That was, we were doing those video compilations, where we cut compilations of Carnage and stuff like that. So we were doing things on Deluxe Paint, those crazy animations. And so we convinced the college to get an Amiga with a Genlock, didn't we? We convinced them. Said, no, you need to get one of these, and then we can do titles. And they went, okay, and they did. Good on them. But I bought one primarily when I went to university for word processing to write essays on. But I also got some, it might have been off you or it might have been from someone, but I got some discs, and I got a copy of BC Kid, Bonk's Revenge, which I really enjoyed. But most importantly, I got a copy of I bought a copy of Premier Manager by Gremlin Graphics. It was one of the few football managers that was multiplayer. So you could have up to 4 players. So you'd be a round robin, you do your stuff and you have the game and everything like that. And me and my flatmate at the time, Sean, we played seasons of that over the 3 years that we lived together, or 2 years that we lived together. So that was my most played game on the Amiga, Premier Manager. That was it. There you go.
Wow.
And then I think after that, I got a PlayStation. No, I got an N64. And then that was that. After that, my housemate got a PlayStation. And
you were consoled up.
I was back into the console world. Yeah, that was that. There you go. Andy Marsh asks, do you distinctly remember any time in your computing history where you knowingly deleted something or threw it away just because?
Yeah, actually, I do. 2 things that just spring to mind straight away. Firstly, I created a really interesting boot block virus on the BBC micro computers that spread through the discs of the school, Whitgift School, like a crazy... And I got reprimanded by a teacher at the time, a Mr. Allroyd, who dragged me to the headmaster's office because of all the trouble I'd caused. And it was it wasn't really a proper boot block virus, but it was basically every time you put a disk in, it would ask you a question, but the real question it was asking was, do you want to format the disk? And then if you pressed yes, it formatted your disk. It was stupid, really. I can't remember that, because it wasn't just me that did that. Me and Joe did. Well, Joe did a significant proportion of the complex code. They were an incredible talent for that kind of thing. So that was one thing that we knowingly deleted on purpose. The other thing was I originally had 5 parts that we'd created for Cyanide 2, which was a big multi-demo, and I formatted the disc one day by accident and wiped 5 parts. So there was 5 parts for that never saw the light of day. We tried to recreate them as best we could, but 5 parts got inadvertently wiped in a moment of utter madness. To this day, I remember being screamed at about that. But those are the 2 occasions. I don't remember on the Amiga anything happening like that. I think there's a couple of times when I've lost music that I've created and I can't get it back now, where I'd sort of either the disc had corrupted or I threw one of the discs away or something had happened. I lost an entire box of discs somewhere which had a load of key music files on and stuff like that, including some of the ones that we used when we had a band. So in time that happened, but yeah, knowingly doing it, I think is perhaps less so. I'm a bit fastidious collector of files, though. I still am. I've got hard drives full of random crap. That's so never changed about me. I used to have disk drives and boxes full of discs with random crap on it. Well, stupid names like Blobby and Flobby and Clobby.
Yeah, I remember your file name, stupid. Stupid file name convention.
Exactly.
What's this? That's Flobby 1. That's Blobby 2.
Exactly.
What is it?
I still do it to this day. I'm still like that. Even though I've got hard drives full of folders called Flobby and Blobby and Globby with just bits of file on. I do. I'm terrible. I guess I'm the equivalent of a hoarder, but for digital files, which I suppose is safer than filling up a house full of junk. But you end up with hard drives full of stuff.
I can't talk. I've got 4 2-terabyte hard drives plugged into my PC,
and I bet they're full of Blobby and Clobby and Flobby.
Yeah, they're all mostly full, but that doesn't include the 1 terabyte of 2 SSDs that are in the hard drive. There's 9 terabytes of stuff.
That is so much stuff. Ridiculous.
It's just, yeah, it is crazy.
At some point, that computer of yours is going to become self-aware like Vija.
Yeah, probably. God knows what it'll do, though. Just go looking for whales. I don't think I've ever knowingly deleted something or threw it away just because. I don't think I've ever done that. But the one that always sticks in my mind, it's not C64 Mario or anything like that. I had the Dreamcast, and there was a program on the Dreamcast called the Bleemcast. And what the Bleemcast did is it was supposed to be this revolutionary thing, but it eventually got stingy down, and I bought the disc. And what it allowed you to do was play Metal Gear Solid on the Dreamcast. Now, Metal Gear Solid was only out on the PlayStation, but it allowed you to put the Bleemcast Metal Gear Solid game and then put the disc in for Metal Gear Solid. You could play it. It up-resed it. It increased the texture resolution. It made it look way better, and it ran smoother because the Dreamcast had a lot more power. It was essentially an emulator running on a Dreamcast for a PlayStation.
Wow.
The only thing was, though, that you had to have a VMU, the memory cards for the Dreamcast. You had to have one of them formatted for it. So you had to have a blank one. And then when the Bleemcast ran, it said, okay, I'm going to format this as a PlayStation memory card so we can save the game. Yeah. So I spent like an hour. I had like five of these memory cards, and most of them were full because I had loads of games. And I spent like an hour clearing one off. So I had moving everything off it to sort of rejigging stuff and trying to fit everything onto these other 4. So I had one clear, and I put the Bleemcast in. So I copied the last bit off into one of them, and I put the Bleemcast in, and it said, do you want to format it? And I went, yes. And just as I clicked yes, I pressed the button and looked down, and the blank one was by my knee.
Oh, no. Oh no, that's the nightmare. That's
so the blank one, so the one that was full of game saves, like entire saves of Shenmue, Soul Calibur, everything open and locked, was on that one, which I just pressed yes to reformat it. The horror of this was that, so I made this recollection. The pain was, though, I was in the front room doing this, and my partner at the time was sat there with her friend, and they were just chatting away on the sofa, and I was just doing this in the living room, just trying to keep quiet because they were having a chat. We didn't have a very big house, so there's nowhere to go. And so they were on the thingy. So it was one of those moments that I couldn't scream, which is what I wanted to do, and say a lot of swear words. So I just had to silently seethe in anger because I couldn't do anything. I remember, my nails went into my palms. I was just so angry with myself because there's nowhere to direct that anger. Nowhere. It's only just the realization of what you've just done. Of like so many hours of gameplay just gone. I was like, I was so angry. But that's the worst. It's the worst thing I've ever done in regards to that. Hours just gone. I was so annoyed. That's the worst thing I've ever done. There you go. Next one. David Hearn says, what game, C64 or any platform, did you know wasn't great, but you still kept coming back to anyway? This was Friday the 13th and Mad Doctor.
Oh, gosh.
I mean, I think I'm on record of the podcast of saying I played a lot of Talladega back in the day, and Cobra.
Yeah, you did play a lot of Cobra, didn't you? I'm trying to think.
Which I knew it was terrible. I played loads of it. I don't know why. It was probably that music, Ben Daglish music. That's probably mine. I mean, I knew they were terrible. Friday the 13th, though, I don't think I can forgive you for that.
No, I didn't.
I knew that was awful back at the time.
I actually had a low tolerance for kind of crappy games. So I did, for some reason, I'm not sure why, go back to Booty for quite a while. I kept reloading and playing Booty, and I think
because
partly because my dad really liked. Yeah, he really liked it. So, but I think, and I also just got into it. That, and I remember repeatedly loading it. It took ages to load Wizardry as well, and then just always getting stuck in the same place and just thinking, why do I keep putting myself through this torture? And it was that. I remember the music was like doon do 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 do. Anyway, kept getting stuck, and so those games tortured me so periodically. And I think I even also loaded Buck Rogers when I had that on turbo tape and kept playing that as well.
I think I played a fair bit of that as well.
Bloody crap! I don't know what possessed me to keep running to play that rubbish. But yeah, those ones really probably a lot of that turbo tape got some hammer in my house. Let me tell you,
it's ironic. Yeah, Buck Rogers is nothing like the TV show, is it?
No, it is not.
Really not. 2000 DC asked, don't know if this has been asked before, but what other podcasts do you guys listen to, and did you take any inspiration from them?
I have historically not been a huge podcast listener. You were more of a podcast listener than me. However, you put me onto a particularly good one, which was a pop collaborating listen, which is that music one, isn't it? With I forget them, Dave.
Yeah, it's Dave and Krista, my friends, Dave and Krista.
Yeah. And that's a particularly good one, and I've listened to the entirety of that. I quite like that. I also like one which is on the BBC Sounds, which is called Evil Genius, which is one where they sort of it's Russell Kane gets a panel of other comedians, and they basically take a historical figure or somebody and just to try and decide whether they're a genius or evil by process of just going through some facts and what he calls fact bombs, where they open up envelopes and they discuss it. That's quite good. They're quite fun. And those are the podcasts I've been listening to. I also listen to one called Nostalgia Goggles, which is pretty good, which is a gaming podcast. Also, of course, some of the other retro podcasts, which I've kind of got more into as we've done our podcast. So Retro Asylum is one that I've dove into. And there's a few others like that. And I've just, because there's a lot of them have got so many episodes, I'm kind of picking and choosing my way through. But I found also I'm quite into a lot of YouTubers. So not this kind of classic YouTube, where it's just some guy reacting to a guy opening a tin of beans or something stupid.
Oh my God.
Oh my God, he's opening the beans. There's actual beans in the can. Wow. Or any of those, stupid over jokey, well, I don't know why am I doing this anyway? Hey, that kind of stupid crap. There's a guy called Sticks Fix, which is a guy who just prepares old consoles, and he's not necessarily an expert, and it's quite a weirdly cathartic and interesting thing to watch him do. It's because he gets these crappy things that he buys off eBay and then just tries to fix them by obviously replacing microchips and stuff like that. And it's something I'm crap at, soldering and that sort of stuff. So watching somebody who's pretty good at it is quite weirdly interesting. And then I also quite like, there's a guy called Shaylan, which I've mentioned before in the podcast, who does is converting a big game to the C64, but he's got loads of how to. If you want to know how to code 6502, and it's particularly Commodore and programming, machine code programming, he's got an entire catalogue of hours of videos where he goes through sort of line by line assembler code. Really, really, really good stuff. And he's a genuinely interesting guy. He does like a Twitch channel broadcast, so that's what you tend to watch on YouTube, but they're going for hours. He's doing these things for 3 or 4 hours at a time. So they're really in depth, really, really good. So you've got to set some time aside to watch them, but they are quite interesting. And of course, there's other YouTube channels I watch, but those are my main podcasts, go-to podcasts, stuff like that. And of course, there's a lot of our friends who've been on our podcast. I always obviously tune into their podcast as well.
Yeah.
And Brandon's podcast and
Hands on Gaming.
Hands on Gaming. Yeah. What about you?
Gaming guys. Well, Hands on Gaming. I think the main ones I listen to at the moment, when they come out, I'm a big fan of the Hardcore History podcast, Dan Carling's Hardcore History. I don't know if you listen to them. They're incredibly in-depth podcasts about historical events. So I think the last one I finished was a 5 or was it 6-part series on the World War II in the Pacific, and they're each about 5-6 hours long, and it's just him.
Wow.
It's just him.
Cool.
So they come out like they're quite spaced apart. So it's nice because you can take your time listening to him. So he does one-offs. What he does call these Blitz episodes. They're like 3-4 hours long. And there's some really, really interesting stuff. He's done like the history of Japan. He's done the history of the US, the slave trade. He's done loads of really, really, really interesting stuff. And he's
I don't know. I didn't do that. Why did that happen?
That's an inapt moment for that to go on.
That's weird. I haven't done anything. I haven't moved.
Hardcore History is one I listen to. There's the Watch Out for Fireballs gaming podcast, which I think is really good, where they take a retro game and they sort of dig into it and they do a deep dive on that. They have the spin-off, or not the spin-off, but the side thing called Bonfire Side Chat. If you're into the Dark Souls podcast, those are really good. So any Dark Souls 1, 2, 3, Bloodborne, they're all really very good. And they also look at sort of influences and games in that Soulsborne genre. So those are the kind of things I listen to mostly. I was listening to Giant Bomb a lot, but that really went off the boil quite a lot recently. And the main guy, Jeff Gersman, who does it, is left, and he now has his own podcast. So I listen to that because he's just he's an American podcaster. He's an American sort of games journalist, but he's been doing it since the early 90s.
Wow.
And he's a massive C64 fan. He sometimes just does streams where he just plays a load of C64 games. But he's just knowledgeable about games, and not just modern games, retro games, everything. It's like a walking encyclopedia of games. And so it's just sometimes just nice to listen to him talk, because you just learn things and see different views. And he's also pretty miserable about everything as well. So that's always good. That's kind of what I listen to. I don't watch much YouTubers. I just can't find the time to all the podcasts.
I tend to watch them when I'm having my lunch.
Yeah, that's fair enough. All right. What C64 from David Hearn? What C64 game did you look forward to playing the most? And did it live up to your expectations? It was Mercenary for David.
Okay.
And it exceeded his expectations. For me, Paradroid.
Okay.
I've been reading that developer diary in Zap every month, and then the game turned up, and it's a classic, isn't it? We know this. It's a bloody classic. I think Summer Games 2 as well, because I had Summer Games, so I'd seen the review in Summer Games 2 in Zap, and so when I got my hands on that, I was like, oh my god, and it was as good as I remember. I mean, there's obvious ones, maybe Last Ninja in there probably as well, International Karate Plus, things like that. I don't know, really. What about you?
Probably Last Ninja for a tape cassette game, Defender of the Crown for a disc-based game.
I'm
looking forward to those. I didn't really sort of look forward to, because I'd looked forward to some games and my expectations weren't met. So Fist 2 I was really looking forward to, and that was like being Fist 2'd when it arrived.
Number 2, yeah.
So, but and IK Plus, I was genuinely excited for IK Plus. I'd heard about that. I'd actually heard about it from other people before I'd even really sort of got wind of, and I'd heard that it was just, everyone was saying how amazing it was. So probably IK Plus, I really wanted to play that. And probably possibly Rocket Ranger and possibly Zap McCracken. But again, I'd heard more about them through the grapevine and come across them more than looked forward to. So I think if I was going to be honest and say look forward to, it would probably be something like Last Ninja or Defender of the Crown, because they were, I'd read about them and seen about them, and they really did, leverage the hell out of Last Ninja. And also, to some extent, I think Delta a little bit, because I remember reading a bit about getting quite excited about the idea of anything Hubbard-y soundtrack-wise tended to pique my interest at that time. So,
no, fair enough.
No.
Dr. Goggles asked, are there any old C64 games which you never completed but wish you had? And do you hope to complete them one day or not?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't think I'd want to complete them now necessarily. I don't know. Possibly Great Giana Sisters, because I never ever finished that, I don't think, on the C64. So I don't know. There wasn't the trouble. The trouble is the games I did finish on the C64 never really had very good endings.
No.
So, and I did in the end, and I don't think I finished it. I don't think I finished it honestly. So things like Mission Impossible, I don't think I honestly finished it. I think I cheated my way to finishing that somehow at some point. So I can't honestly say. But games that I never completed and wish I'd, perhaps Giana Sisters, and that's about it really. I never really was that bothered about finishing some of the games unless it really hooked me in. What about you? Because I just kind of, if I got so far and then another game would come along, I'd be straight onto that one generally.
Yeah, I can't really think. I think anything that I wanted to complete, I did.
Yeah, same.
So,
sort of thing, really.
And I think even back then, from what we've found by doing this podcast, is so many games are so bloody hard.
Yes,
they get ridiculously hard unless you're going to cheat your way through to the end. The ones I wanted to complete: Green Beret, Antiriad, Last Ninja, Target Renegade. These kind of games, which I got really into and fought my way through to the end. I did it.
Yeah.
Because and also back then, I had the time.
Yeah.
I had the time and I had the 15-year-old reflexes.
Yeah.
And you also as well, not just that, but I had that was all you knew. So you didn't know game pads with multiple buttons and different things. It was just like this was gaming back then. That's all you knew. So you weren't sort of distracted by anything else. And you just spent hours playing them and replaying them and going at them until you just got to the end. don't think there's anything that I'd want to complete now, because I think I would have just done it back then if I'd have been desperate to do it. Because I think if I was going to complete something, I'd either cheat my way or just go watch the ending on YouTube.
Yeah, probably same.
So yeah, maybe sad, but it's just time now, isn't it? Back then, you just have all the time. You have all the time and none of the money.
Yes.
Now I have none of the money and none of the time. It's a terrible dichotomy.
The novel Escape from the Commodore 64 by David Hearn is out now. Growing up in the 80s is a chore for Sarah, who feels misunderstood by her parents and badgered by Reese, her bothersome brother who incessantly prattles on about his treasured computer games. When Reese tells her one of the games tried to pull him inside the computer, she laughs off his fanciful fib. She waggles the joystick to disprove his fairy tale and is pulled into the computer. Now trapped in games she'd never had any interest in playing, how can she possibly beat them? With the help of feisty Nell, another trapped player, can Sarah find her way back home, or is it game over? An evil madman, a hostile planet, bloodthirsty robots, a never-ending throng of karate experts, and relentless digital soldiers will do their best to ensure Sarah never escapes. Available from Amazon and all good online retailers, find out if there's a way out of the beige bread bin of betrayal for Sarah in Escape from the Commodore 64.
David Hearn asks, listening to the last podcast, he asked this a while back, Gazusha said Barbarian would be in his top 10 C64 games. Have we got a top 10? Do we think could you put a top 10 C64 games together?
Do you know, I think if I was just going to list games, I don't think it would work. I'd have to sort of really think about that more. I could think of the games that would be in it for me. So definitely things like Maniac Mansion, Zapped McCracken and the Alien Mindbenders, IK Plus, probably Barbarian would be in there in the top 10. Last Ninja, Catechus, probably Whizball. I don't know. I'd have to, and that's just off the top of my head. I'd have to sit and think about it a bit more. And I'm actually waiting because I think there'll be some games that I don't remember, and then we'll play them as part of the podcast as we go through 1988 and later. And I'm going to think, actually, I did really like that. Just haven't come across it for a while. So those are those are ones. But my top 10 would flex around anyway. Even back then, it would change. I was nothing if not inconsistent with my top 10. Games would move in and out of that. And I'd probably be able to answer that question more on the Amiga, oddly, than I would C64, because I spent a large percentage of my time with a C64 doing demos and that kind of stuff, and it became less about the games. When I got an Amiga, I did less demos and had more games and demos to watch, so maybe I'd be able to do it then. But those things, probably summer games too, maybe would be in there. One of the summer games would be winter game, world games, I'm not sure, but one of those maybe. But you?
Yeah, I don't think I could put a full 10 together. I know some games that would be in there, like similar to what you said. For me, there'd be things like Paradroid, the Eidolon.
Yeah, Paradroid, I forgot about Paradroid.
Summer games too. I'm trying to think of others sort of thing that really, Green Beret, things like that. Things that Nebulous would probably be in there. Whizball would probably get a shout. So, but a firm definitive top 10, it's hard to do, isn't it, without really sort of sitting down and a bit of paper and scribbling out, and then I'm not going to do that right now, but it's hard to do. I mean, following on from that, Mark Fletcher says, what's your top 5 events in Epic's game series?
Oh, that's a good question. I like the ski jump from Winter Games. I like the barrel jump and the cliff diving from World Games. I quite liked the bobsleigh until I replayed it and then realised how short it was.
20 seconds, isn't it, if you're really good?
Yeah, that's what I mean. So I always remembered it being a lot longer than that. So I quite like those. Summer Games too. I quite liked some of the events in that one. I'm thinking more, I didn't so much like the waggly ones, but more of the throwy ones. So,
there's no waggly ones in Summer Games too.
I thought it was the foot you could sort of spin your joystick round and sort of,
Well, yeah, there's rhythmic movements, but not waggle. Yeah, not David Thompson's waggle.
No, I don't mean waggle like that. I just mean I tend to prefer throwing events and stuff like that, and jumping and things like that, as opposed to just running events and running and jumping events. So, but those are off the top of my head. There's one I can tell you also hate more things like log rolling and things like that.
Sumo
even the caber toss to some extent, apart from its sound effects, it's pretty lame. So stuff like that. In California Games, I could leave all of them. I don't really like any of those.
Yeah, exactly. If I go through them, probably the diving from Summer Games, which I found immensely satisfying. The triple jump from Summer Games 2.
Yeah.
Which is, just the move, the control of that is your legs. Right leg, left leg up. Right, left up. It's perfect control system. Probably, I don't know, Winter Games. Yeah, ski jump. I like the ski jump. I like the rowing from Summer Games 2. I like that rhythmic back and forth, getting that rhythm going. And once you nail it, it's so satisfying. Probably my list in the Patreon was probably different. I'm trying to think right now. Maybe the weightlifting. I think when you nail the weightlifting, that feels quite good in World Games.
Yeah, maybe, yeah.
But also, probably over that the cliff diving.
Yeah, and
maybe the barrel jumping as well. That's 6, isn't it? So it's out of those. Probably. I mean, there's probably all of them. I mean, most of them from Summer Games too, but I don't know. That's that one. What else we got? Let's go to this one. David Hearn says, what was your A, favourite, and B, most disappointing sequel to a C64 game? Sequel could be on any platform.
A sequel on any platform leaves it a bit wide.
Yeah, I mean, you could just stick with the C64.
Yeah, I think it's not a sequel as such. I mean, I really like Maniac Mansion, and I suppose its natural progression is Zack McCracken. So, but I do like Day of the Tentacle as a direct sequel, so I quite like that. Last Ninja 2 is a good sequel to Last Ninja.
Yeah.
So that's quite a good. It's actually slightly better in some ways. Obviously,
IK
less
Plus.
so. IK Plus, so less so Fist 2, but IK Plus. And I'm trying to think if there's anything that really makes me go, because Ghosts and Goblins was okay on the C64, but it was a good sound and everything, but game itself not great.
What about Ghouls and Ghosts?
Yeah, Ghouls and Ghosts again. Sorry, Ghouls and Ghosts, great sounds, but
I can't remember what the game was like on the C64.
It's okay. It's all right. It's not amazing, but the music is. I don't know, because even Gauntlet 2 was kind of crappy, and for some reason I did quite like Gauntlet in its own kind of unique way. Druid and Druid 2 are good.
Yeah.
So that's probably off the top of my head, those. If I sat and thought about it more, I'd probably be able to lane some more of those. But
yeah, I think IK Plus is probably along the favourites. Like I said, Last Ninja 2 is good. Disappointing it's got to be Fist 2.
Yeah,
I think it ranks. It's such a fall from. I know I could see what they were trying to do, and I get it, but it didn't work, and it was buggy, and it was broken.
Yeah, and Impossible Mission 2
and it was dull. Yeah, I guess. I mean, I suppose favourite.
Auf Wiedersehen Monty, Dog Egg.
Yeah, Auf Wiedersehen Monty. But favourite sequels would be Pit Stop 2, Summer Games 2.
Yeah, Pit Stop 2 is, absolutely. I always forget about Pit Stop 1.
That's a good,
Pit Stop 2 is that
reason.
good. Yeah, that's what I mean.
We looked at it, didn't we, back in episode 0?
Yeah, it just kind of starts with 2 for me.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think there you go. That's that. Let's just find another one. Dr. Goggle says, where does Adrian stand on the band Mr. Mister?
On their neck, on their tiny necks.
On their lazy necks. Do I need to answer that? You know where I stand on double name, same word name bands. I'm not having a-ha, though, by the way. I see you put a-ha in that list. I'm not having that. They're two separate, it's spelt differently. There's no H.
Yeah, you can't have a-ha. Yeah, it's not a-ha. I suppose it's just, but Mr.
Talk, Duran,
Do you imagine if Mr. did a cover of a Twisted Sister song?
God.
Mr. Twisted Sister.
Or Shakespeare's Sister, or Sisters of Mercy.
Sister. All those sisters come together. They all come together.
Mr. Sisters of Mercy.
Mr. Sisters of Mercy, yeah. Shakespeare's Mr. Shakespeare Sisters of Mercy.
Shakespeare's Mr. Yeah, that's where I stand on the neck.
Firmly on their necks until they snap like twigs.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh dear. All right, what else we got? David Hearn says you can exist inside any C64 game for an hour. Which one would you choose and why?
Ooh,
I'm going to go with Yes, Prime Minister. Quiet in that office.
You could go for Yes, Prime Minister, I suppose. That might suit you. I think I'd go for...
Frankenstein. We could just wait outside the tree.
Oh, the agony of being chased by a bear again. Oh. I think there's... what was that game where you went into the brothel and you came out satisfied? I'd go in that game.
Oh, Taipan.
I'll be in Taipan for a bit. See you later. I'm off to Taipan.
You come out tired but satisfied.
Yes.
Okay. Do I? I don't look very satisfied. I still look like a blocky sprite. Oh, there we go. David Henner also asks, which of us loves bread the most?
It's a strange question, that. And I'm assuming he means the actual baked bread as opposed to the band.
So, yeah, not the band. Although it might mean the band.
I do like the band bread.
So
I do like the band bread, and I also do like bread. I don't eat a lot of bread actually. Yeah.
I don't know. I'm going to say, having stayed around at your place recently when we came around, there was a lot of bready products for that, so it was good. It was lovely sort of things. But
we had pizza, didn't we?
Yeah. We did pizza, so I'm going to say you probably.
Yeah. It's probably me. I do. I've actually making more bread.
Don't forget your plan when as a child to survive a zombie apocalypse was to go up in your attic with several loaves of bread and just wait it out.
Yes. It's eat a crumb a day. So that was my plan. There's no logic to it, really.
No, because they're going to go stale and mouldy.
I don't know why I climbed up in the loft. The way I figured it was they can't climb ladders.
You're confusing them with Daleks.
Yeah, and it's just a stupid idea, really.
Yeah, pretty much. David Hearn also says, what's a game you've played but never finished? Oh, here we go. I think we've had this one already. Similar sort of thing.
Yeah,
one day you hope to get to return to and finish. I think
we've answered that one.
We've kind of answered that, yeah. This one more for you. Who is your favourite WWF, WWE wrestler or tag team? And have you ever played a wrestling game you liked?
So now, yes, the wrestling game I played, but there was an arcade. I've never really played a computer one. I didn't really like Championship Wrestling that much because I couldn't do any of the moves. In fact, that's been the story of every wrestling game I've ever played. There was an arcade one, which was, I think, it might have been a bit of derivative of Championship Wrestling or something, but that was one I quite liked. That was a two-player game where it was a tag team wrestling. It might have been called tag team wrestling. I couldn't honestly tell you where it was. They used to have it. We
played tag team wrestling, didn't we? We had a conversion of it. Was it that one?
Yeah, no, it was. It might have been. There was an original arcade of it. The only reason I don't even know its existence is because it was in the student union at Grimsby College when I was there many years ago. When they had a student union. So.
God Lord, we're talking some time.
We're going back 1980 something. So that's the only game, and I couldn't honestly tell you what it was called. Might have been Championship Wrestling or something like that. My favourite WWE wrestler of all time is the Ultimate Warrior. He was and will always remain my favourite WWE wrestler. Now, I liked some of the gimmicky ones, don't get me wrong. Roddy Piper, and Jake the Snake Roberts, Ted DiBiase. I liked all of those. And there's so many of that time. That particular time was replete with, it's almost like looking at an arcade game full of characters. Yeah. Obviously, you've got Hulk Hogan, but you had loads of characters, and they got silly with it, don't get me wrong. And obviously, it's all pantomime, really. But, and someone's going to start screaming, you mean it's not real? I mean that. But I've always quite liked the Ultimate Warrior for many, many reasons. The least of which is because he was a babble-talking maniac.
Yes, he was.
Run my legs over with lawnmowers kind of guy is what he says once famously. And Hulk Hogan. So I quite, even now watching some of his YouTube videos, or the videos of him on YouTube, should I say, are absolutely hilarious to watch.
And of course, there's that classic YouTube clip of him where someone's taking all the words out.
Yeah, it's just the breaths. Yeah,
it's just the breath.
It's really weird. It's really weird. But yeah, Ted DiBiase, the $1 Million Man, Dusty Rhodes, the Great Muta, all those different, because there was different leagues, and those. I mean, that was me. What about you? Did you have any favourites? I mean,
no, I never liked
really
wrestling.
Your thing, was it?
No,
really your thing?
It was. I remember we used to go around and watch it at our friend's house, but it was more you guys. I was just like, I don't get this. Just don't. Yeah. So it never appealed to me. And
it lost me when Tugboat came along with his doop doop boop boop. Giant guy Tugboat.
Really?
Yeah.
See, this is, why did I never get into this?
Well, this was all before characters like The Undertaker and that were in it. It was the cusp of The Undertaker when he first started out.
Yeah, I didn't mind The Undertaker. I did quite enjoy the Royal Rumbles.
I still think it's great entertainment. I mean, as much as it's stupid.
It's like someone who doesn't like football but doesn't mind like the FA Cup final. Yeah. You kind of watch the finals. The Royal Rumble was always a bit of a laugh. Just 30 people slowly, one by one entering a ring, which sounds dreadful.
And it's easy to forget that there's some weird wrestlers. I mean, Brutus the Barber Beefcake, who would put his victims in a sleeper hold and then cut their hair. Came on in bright pink marigolds.
Oh, good Lord.
And
why
the
did I never get into
Bushwhackers.
this? Oh, dear. There you go. I can't comment on that. It's just, whatever. David Henn also asks, favourite arcade machine and why?
Oh, good question. What's your favourite, actually? I know exactly what mine is.
Oh, well, you go.
Narc.
Really?
Narc is my favourite arcade game of all time.
Okay.
That and a very, very close second is Golden Axe.
Yeah. I think I really put a lot of money into Golden Axe, Green Beret, because of its simplicity and thing. I always had a thing for the original Star Wars arcade.
Yeah, now Phil, I played that recently at the arcade club, and I wasn't struck on it.
I'm not saying it stands up or anything like that, but I think at the time, I think it was incredible. Here's me saying I like a vector graphics game, but that wraparound sound and all the sound effects and everything, and the Star Wars, it felt Star Wars. When you were in the cabinet
and all that.
Yeah. And it's got all the sound effects. So that was really good. And Tron as well. I used to be a massive fan of the Tron arcade.
Tron is always a bit of a classic, isn't it? It's very, very like the film. That's why I think the sounds and everything.
Yeah.
I totally get it. All of those choices I could get behind as really good. I like Narc because it's crazy and it's so friggin' loud. It's like the loudest game of all. Even if you get an emulator, put an emulator, it's loud. All of a sudden your speakers are louder than they've ever been. Like, how are you so loud?
It's got the power of Eugene Jarvis behind it, hasn't it?
Well, it is Eugene. It's a Eugene Jarvis game. It's Mr. Defender himself, so it's a Williams game, isn't it? So you know it's going to be loud sounds. And
that's because when you worked into an arcade, you heard Berserk.
Yes, exactly.
You couldn't help but hear Berserk. It was just loud.
And it's got such an Ace 80s soundtrack to Narc, and it's such an Ace 80s vibe. Oh no, they're Narc, man! You just dive out of your car, rocket launching clowns. That's the way I like to roll.
Yeah, you can't really argue with that. Yeah,
no,
you cannot. Buzz it. What's this? Let's see what we can make of this one. We're still almost a year away from the release of Corruption by Magnetic Scrolls. He purchased the game, and his brother purchased Porn at the time. Not porn, the game Porn.
PAWN.
PAWN. And he still thinks it's the most impossible adventure game ever created. Is it yours? I can't say because I've never played it.
I always found all adventure games relatively impossible.
Yeah.
Because I didn't like the parsing system in them, which is why I was drawn to the point and clicks.
Yeah.
So for me, I never really liked them. The ones I did play, I never really got on with anyway.
Yeah.
So.
I can understand that. This is not something... I mean, if it's a Magnetic Scrolls game, I'm going to guess it was on disc. And if it was on disc, it would have completely passed me by anyway. So I don't know. I can't answer that. So we may get to it. If it's not on disc, if it's not in the adventure section, we'll look at it. But I don't know. It's not. I don't think I've even ever heard of it. Magnetic Scrolls. They did Guild of Thieves, didn't they?
Support for Zapped to the Past is brought to you by Manscaped, who is the best in men's below-the-waist grooming. Their products are precision-engineered tools for your family jewels. Manscaped's Performance Package is the ultimate men's hygiene bundle. Join over 4 million satisfied men worldwide who can trust Manscaped with this exclusive offer for you. That's 20% off and free worldwide shipping with the code ZAPPED20. That's ZAPPED20 at manscaped.com. Now, if my maths is correct, that's about 8 million balls.
So, yeah, okay. David Hearn asks us for a game. I don't know if we've done this one as well. We missed when it came out, but have since revisited, and you have it in your top 10.
Ooh. I missed quite a lot of games when they came
C64.
out.
I mean, mine have been Bloodborne and Souls games. So.
Oh, yeah, because you're well into them now, didn't you?
Oh, yeah. So I'm 60 hours into Elden Ring at the moment.
Oh, my God. A game that I missed out and have since revisited would be in my top 10. If we're talking about games of all time, I would probably have to put in there, it would either have to be BioShock, Half-Life, or Halo, or all three. Half-Life 2, sorry, or Halo, or all three. Because I missed out on all of those games when they came out and then revisited them much later.
Yeah, and I was shouting at you about them, wasn't it?
Yeah, well, Halo specifically, I'd sort of come across, I remember doing a search for horror games on PC when I had a decent PC. And the three that came up were BioShock, Half-Life 2, and one of the Silent Hill games that was probably around at that time, which I played. And out of the three games I played at that time, but I'd realised when I played those, certainly when I played, and also I think I'd played another one, but I can't remember what it was called. It might have been Fear as well that came up around. Anyway, I acquired these games, shall we say. And then that kind of sparked an interest in the sort of, I realised that newer games were quite good. Now, bearing in mind at this point, I was obviously out of a relationship then by that time, which had been pretty toxic. So I was able to sort of get back into the things that I really enjoyed, and gaming was one of those things.
You dipped out of games for quite... We both had a period where we dipped out of games. Mine was probably like 88, 89 to about 96, 97.
Yeah, and mine was probably because I didn't really play a lot of games at university, so 95 through to well into the 2006-07s, actually, really was when, I mean, I did have a bit of a flirtation with them around 96 because I remember playing Duke Nukem and stuff like that around that time.
I remember you being into GoldenEye quite a bit.
Yeah, and that's what I say. So around that time, because I was working back at Blockbuster.
And Mario 64, I think.
Mario 64. And yeah, absolutely I did. And I still do like those, don't get me wrong. But yeah, I think if I was honest, I had a bit of a revisionist play of those, Half-Life 2, particularly Half-Life 2. And I just didn't realise how far games had gotten, how good they'd gotten in that time until I played that. And then I remember catching up with you. And by this point, I think you were first moving house to another city from where you'd lived. And you were looking at houses. And I think that's when you sort of talked to me in the pub about Halo and that I should really get onto that. And then, of course, from there I got Halo and then got consoles and started to get really back into it and got quite a library of games. And then kind of now I've kind of retuned out them a little bit, aside from what we do for the podcast. But don't play nearly as many now. Well, I don't have the time to play them. And actually, it's not about time, really. I can make time for them. I just find that I don't have I just can't play them for long enough I don't get into them as much as I did. The last one I got really into was that Ghost of Tsushima, and it felt endless as well. I felt like I was endlessly. By the end of it, I was almost composing my own haikus anyway. Just thought, please let me out of here. This game is endless, and it just felt endless. And it was good. Don't get me wrong; it's amazing. But it was also, it reminded me at that time that I'd played exactly that game with just different skin on it in the Lord of the Rings game that came out, and Assassin's Creed, and there was loads of games that looked and played a bit like that.
Yeah, the games industry is still suffering from open world game fatigue. That's why Elden Ring is it's an open world one, but it's the new Souls game, so it has that Souls DNA underpinning it. And it's more like Breath of the Wild, which is also excellent.
And there's just some games I just didn't get into. And even, I mean, I still quite like my third-person hack-and-slash type games, my Bayonettas and stuff like that. I like those. And you don't need to make derivations of those and make them more complicated than that. Just have an endless supply of demons from another dimension for me to contort myself into sorts of crazy moves, and you've got the game sold to me. I don't need more than that. So they'll do me. And I still play them now and again, Bayonetta and Bayonetta 2 on the Wii U. So. Yeah,
fair enough. Penultimate question. David Hearn asks, what's our favourite... I'm going to give this is another one for you. Your favourite and least favourite Doctor Who companion?
I think I answered this in the channel. I liked Sarah Jane as a companion. She was a companion to John Pertwee and to Tom Baker. I quite liked Leela. My dad really liked Leela. A lot of men of that age really liked Leela. She ran around in a bikini, a cave woman style bikini for most of the episodes. And then Perry, of course, came along later on. Big, bobbly, bouncy Perry came along. So I quite like those. But later companions, lots of people who do and don't like them, some of the later companions. I quite like Rose Tyler as a companion. I thought she was quite good in her own way. I liked the Doctor at that time. I also quite liked the couple of the later ones. I can't remember her name now. For some reason, it's just gone out of my mind. But I quite like Peter Capaldi's Doctor Who, you're saying, which is very, very unfavourable thing to say. But those are probably my favourite. Least favourites, Adric, Pig Nose Adric. Don't like him. Glad he got murdered by the Cylons. Never mourned his loss.
Cylons?
Cylons. I've got Cylons on the brain. The Cybermen, sorry.
I was going to say, we've got some sci-fi crossover.
That would be Ace, though, wouldn't it? But no, and I can't think of any others. There's a lot of companions that I don't remember them.
Did you like
Tegan and Ace and
what's her name? The one who has the thing on her back in that episode, and one of the later ones, the David Tennant ones after Rose.
Oh,
what's the name?
Agatha, is it?
No, what's the name? She's a comedian.
Oh, you know what? I've had a bit of a review of that. I know you mean. For God's sake, if I tell you, my brain is adult nowadays.
It's Catherine. Is it Catherine? No,
Catherine Tate.
Catherine Tate, yeah.
Catherine Tate. And I didn't at first, but I've actually rewatched that entire series. And yes, actually, she's actually, if you watch it, and there's actually her story arc is actually quite clever. The way
her story arc is really sad as well, I thought.
Yes. So she's a very good. She's actually a lot better than I gave her credit for.
Yeah, I liked Karen Gillan as well.
Yes, and as I said, I think actually she's probably my absolute favourite because she's responsible for some of my favourite episodes of later Doctor Who. So there's such a good episode where she gets trapped in time away from the Doctor. It's so clever, really good. And then I don't know, early ones that I hate. I don't know. There's a lot of those. There's plenty that come and go.
Probably is. Finally, I cannot say this quite quickly, but whatever. David Hearn says, did Piracy kill the Commodore 64?
No, it didn't.
No, it didn't.
Still going.
It is still going, exactly, yeah. No, it didn't. And just as a wider thing, I don't think Piracy kills any console. It's an easy scapegoat to put on it, but it's not. It's marketing, it's quality of games, number of games that get made for something. It's whether it gets picked up by the public. There's loads of it. There's loads of things. Consoles fall by the wayside all the time. Computers fall by the wayside. You could argue that, well, did Piracy kill the Dragon 32? No, it was just crap.
Did it slay the Dragon 32?
Yeah, anything like that. Yeah, exactly. So it didn't. So most of my games that I got for my Commodore 64, I'm not going to say it was probably about a 90-10 split, and 90% of it was pirated. I'm not going to lie, because it just was. But I got so much of it that, but I still spent money. When I had the money wanted to buy something, I would still buy it. There were so many games that I played. We've gone through a lot of them in the podcast and stuff. So I would never buy anyway. So it wasn't a loss of money for the publisher, because there was no way I was ever going to buy Election, or anything like that. It just was never going to happen. I knew what games I really liked, and I bought them with my pocket money, saved up and bought them with my pocket money. If I tried something and pirate and liked it, but okay, but I would have never bought it, because I would never have taken the risk, because I didn't have a lot of money. So Piracy actually opened up certain games that I may have later gone on to buy.
Yeah, absolutely. And the same for me. I mean, I started off like everyone starts off in the UK. You are limited by the shops that sell the games. Yeah. And by the amount of money that you get, because you only tended to get money at certain times, birthdays and Christmas. So it's not like you just had money handed to you every other week or anything, because I certainly didn't. I didn't have pocket money or anything like that. It didn't exist. If I wanted money, I had to either find a way of earning it, or save
paper round, which paid £3.50 or £4 a week.
Exactly. So when I invested my money in a game, I had to make sure it was a good game. So I bought what I would consider to be, good games. So I remember buying things like Green Beret, albeit that I've got V first and took it back, but Green Beret, Last Ninja, and those were things I'd bought with either birthday money or Christmas present money that I'd saved and things like that. I didn't ever go and could never go and ask my parents, say, can I have a game, please? Because A, £10 was a lot of money, and B, they had no clue what I was talking about, and also thought the games were a complete waste of money and my time. And because you're wasting your time and your life away on that bloody thing. You should be, I got you that so you could, do your own work better or whatever. So, and then in the end, my money then got diverted then into buying stamps and blank discs. Once I've got an action replay and the ability to send discs to Europe, everything changed.
Yeah, exactly. And I think if you look at the C64, what came out in 1982. 1982 was it?
Yeah,
it was 1982, 83, 82. Yeah. It came out. I mean, but we're at the end of 87, and like I said, we're at the top of the bell curve. There's still, we've got 101 games coming up in the next 3 issues of Zapped. That to me doesn't sound like, that's 5 to 6 years into the lifespan of this machine. That's not a machine that was killed by piracy. That's a machine that's going very strongly. And let's not forget, the Commodore 64, as far as I'm right, is still the biggest selling computer of all time, isn't it?
Yep, still is. And there's still a vibrant scene, demo scene. I mean, even just recently in Gub Data 2022, so many amazing demos for the C64 have been released in a short space of time. They're absolutely mind-blowing. So the people are still finding new ways to interrogate the code and find amazing things that it can do. Even now, the machine is still releasing little secrets and little things and ways of doing things that were hitherto unknown back in 1986, 87. So it blows my mind. So there's still games, I know we've seen, not that recently, but seen recently-ish, the whole Sonic was released on the 64. I mean, these things were unheard of back then.
Yeah, crazy.
So I think this amazes me that there's still life in that machine, and they're still finding nuances of things that they can exploit and chips exploitations and things like that. But that's the beauty of it. It was a flawed machine, but the flaws were all in ways you could exploit.
Yeah.
And that made it, that makes it infinitely malleable, which it is. It's still going to this day. What amazes me actually is that there's still C64s that work, because my power supply was dubious at best. As soon as I got it, I spent most of the time whacking that thing with a broom handle trying to get it to
fuse at the back. Take the fuse out, put it back in.
That black bloody power black. I mean, I got a different one in that block.
I had the beige angular one.
Yeah, the wedge. Yeah, I ended up getting a wedge from I remember buying 100 discs and a power supply, and then drilling holes in it.
Sensible.
so it could vent, because these things because I had my C64 so much, they were never designed for the kind of veracity of on time that I was putting into the thing. I mean, mine was on for principally a year, non-stop.
That fuse at the back you had to pull out and twist it and put it back in.
I mean, Remember my 64 had a green LED in it because I changed all the LEDs and modded it. Early modding.
Finally, I don't think I've asked this one. I might have missed this one. Andy Marsh says, which C64 game did you put in the most hours?
Ooh, for me, that would be Zap McCracken and the Alien Mindbenders. Because I played that game for hours and hours and hours trying to figure it out.
I don't know what mine was. I mean, strangely enough, if I actually think about the amount of time I spent in certain games, it might be something stupid like Star Trader.
Yeah.
Because I spent on that was on Soft Aid. I spent so long just on that game, just trading wares between different starports and looking at those crap graphics. But I know that tune, and I know I played it for hours. But it could be something stupid like that. It might be something like Green Beret, Paradroid, or Target Renegade, which are games I got through. But you can only get through those games by putting hours into them.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It might be the Eidolon. That's another one I never spent a lot of time on, trying to get through to that final dragon.
Games that I spent a lot of time on that I'm surprised I did were Catechis. I remember battling my way through all of that, and Codex. Why? And when I replayed it recently, I'm like, why on earth did I pay so much to play this so much? It's bloody stupid.
You were so very proud. I remember when I came around that night and you told me you'd completed it. I completed Codex.
I remember doing it. I remember doing it and thinking, that isn't it. I've actually, I've completed the Quest for Ultimate Dexterity. That is an achievement. Crap ending, but a good achievement.
Yeah. We were not dexterous, though, back then. We weren't really that dexterous.
I don't quite even now. When I look back and think, how on earth did I do that? But I just had a good memory for the game. And I played it heavily.
That's what I mean. It'll be these games, it's hard to sort of say because you just repetitively cracking your head against something until you did it.
Yeah.
God knows how many times I got through to level 3 or 4 on Green Beret and died.
Yep.
Just because it was random. You're like, oh, God, so many times. There you go. I think that's it. I think we have been certainly asked some questions and we've given answers as promised.
We have indeed.
We have indeed. So normal service resumes next week where we get into January 1988. We'll be back then. Like I said at the beginning, join the Patreon if you want to join in on this next time. And for other stuff, you can get that stuff there. It's a short episode, but we're still on a little bit of a hiatus and a bit of a break and a bit of a chill down between its seasons before all the madness starts again. And that'll be next week. So you got anything you wish to add?
No. I think it's been an interesting trip with these questions, and I'm sure we'll get plenty more. Just remember to join the Patreon because that's where you can do crazy stuff and join in with us and do stuff like this.
Yeah.
That's all good fun.
Yeah, if there's anything you want to know, sign up and ask us. So on that note, as ever, I have been Adrian Mills.
And I have been Graham Ruddings.
And you have been listening to Zapped to the Past, and we will see you again next week. Goodbye.
Thank you for listening to the Zapped to the Past podcast. We hope you enjoyed our deep dive into the world of Commodore 64 games, as well as the music, films and TV from around the 1980s, driven, of course, by the issue of Zap 64 magazine published at that time. We will return with a whole new batch of games and stuff to talk about next week. Until then, if you want to listen to or download previous episodes of Zapped to the Past, and why wouldn't you, they can all be found on our website at zappedtothepast.com, as well as being available on Podbean, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Deezer, Audible, Player FM, and, well, pretty much anywhere where we can upload them. By the way, we do always love to hear from our amazing listeners, so if you'd like to contact us about anything in the podcast or beyond, you can do so by emailing us at zappedtothepast@gmail.com. We're also active on Twitter under @ZapTother, as well as Facebook, Instagram, and most social media platforms. Just search for Zapped to the Past and you'll find us. Oh, and if you like the podcast and what we're doing, please do like, share, review, rate us. It really helps. Something, apparently. The Zapped to the Past podcast is written and produced by Adrian Mills and Graham Ruddings and recorded at Flaky Bits 2.0 Studio. All opinions expressed are those of the writers, and while we indeed love Zap 64 magazine, the Zapped to the Past podcast is not affiliated with it in any way. Stay safe, see you next time, and remember, we play these games so you don't have to.